DDG, episode 152. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? I shouldn't be nervous because we're 152 episodes into this, but you have a new computer, so I am very nervous on if anyone outside of Twitch will see this or hear this podcast.
It'll be fine. We've got plans, so we got fail-safes in place. We've done this, you and I now have probably done this 250 or more times?
Yeah. So as long as the people in the Twitch chat can hear us, we will have an episode that will go live. Whether that will be ripped from Twitch or our actual usual audio, we don't know yet, but we will find out.
It'll be all right. So,
but Dave, how does it feel to be in like current times with a PC?
Cable management is overrated.
Oh God, you're gonna have to send me a picture of your cable management.
It's not that bad, actually. Some of it has to do with the monitor stand that I have, and some of it has to do with what I've actually determined is actually somewhat irritating is the various lengths of every kind of different cable.
Oh yeah. It's like sometimes 3, sometimes 3.5. Good, maybe 6. But I do need, like, I imagine if Angela doesn't like organize the cables, you're just gonna put a rug over the cables and be like, it's fine.
So a lot of them, so I have a 3 monitor setup, so a lot of the cables that are like the power cable, the HDMI or the DisplayPort cable are coming out of the back of the monitors, and they're going down the tube and coming out the back of the tube towards the computer.
Okay.
So that's where the majority of them are. However, I have a Go XLR that has an XLR cable. It has a USB cable. I have a Stream Deck. I have a mouse charging station. I have a wireless headphone that has to have a cord that goes into it. So all those are on my desk as well.
Okay.
As well as like a wireless thing to charge my phone. The keyboard that I'm currently using is something that Rocket sent me within the last 2 or 3 weeks that I'll talk about once I'm a little more comfortable on the PC. But it requires 2 USB ports to plug in.
Oh, because it must have a USB port on the keyboard itself. Sometimes they'll have that in the back.
If it does, I don't know where that is as I'm feeling the keyboard. But anyway, and then like my Elgato has to plug in to a USB port. The wireless dongle for the mouse has to plug into a USB port. The Go XLR plugs into a USB port. So you start running out of USB ports, and we all know that 3.0 is a better connection. So there are, but I don't have as many 3.0 ports as I was like. So I knew I had one, so I had to go find like my USB 3.0 dock that I could plug into one and turn it into 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and hopefully you don't have anything
powered.
important plugged into that dock, because those tend to have issues. So hopefully nothing important's plugged into that.
Not. I prioritized the stuff going into the motherboard, obviously.
Yeah. It's just some of those hubs, they tend to be the point of failure because every company will say it's a certain certification and can handle a certain amount of things, right. And then it turns out like, no, you just keep your keyboard and mouse.
The thing that's most reassuring for me, this has a separate power source, so that's a little bit more reassuring versus a non-powered one.
Yeah.
So this I have to plug this in.
Yeah, so there should be some safety there, but you'll be surprised how often the point of failure is a USB hub.
So, but nonetheless, I was off work last week, and I was able to really kind of take my time. Like I definitely did not rush this process. Like I had the PC sitting at home for a couple of days before I even like opened it, and Michael's texting me like, dude, you got to open that and make sure like the graphics card's not like ripped off.
Yeah, pre-built. You have to watch out for that stuff.
So, and I haven't ran into anything. I played 2 games on it, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But overall, I'm fairly happy with just like the biggest thing is like I was able to not have like audio in and audio out cables. I had so much of that. Like it is less cables than my other setup because I don't have stuff running from PC1 to PC2 and PC2 to PC1. Like I don't have a lot of that stuff going on. But just kind of redoing all of that stuff, and you forget about little things. And I did have to hook my streaming PC back up temporarily to run a cable to get something off of it that I needed, because I forgot to like export all the OBS information.
Of course,
like the images and the backgrounds and the music and the theme songs. And I think when Angela synced OneDrive for me, it was like 550 items that were being moved from the computer.
Mm-hmm.
So, needless to say, we ended up paying the extra $2 a month for OneDrive X, bigger OneDrive storage or whatever it was.
Yeah, if only temporary.
Right. So it got the job done. But anyways, we are Digital Days Gaming, where we are a weekly podcast that records typically on Tuesdays. Today is Wednesday, because reasons. Again, just scheduling stuff. We were hoping for some more news to come through, and it kind of did and kind of didn't. So, and if you're able to support the podcast at all, you can review us on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, on Podcast Addict, Google Play, however you listen. If there's a way to review, that would be super, super helpful to review. As also as sharing the show with anybody else, joining our communities that are linked in the show notes to check it out. And you can check out all the other links, our website where you can get the show weekly, Teesprings, Spotify, Discord, Facebook, all that stuff is in there. And if you can leave, like I said, if you can leave a review or share the show at all, it's always super helpful. We also are live on Twitch, twitch.tv/digitaldaysgaming, where we live stream the show. And hopefully one of the reasons I got another PC is to stream a little bit more often on games that aren't necessarily as challenging to stream over a 2 PC setup, particularly like Game Pass games on PC and PC games in general. As well as it feels, at least on the surface right now, at least when I did it with the Switch, a little less cumbersome to stream a console, to bring something down here, to plug it in really quick, to play for a day or so and take it back upstairs.
Yep, that's what kind of stopped me on streaming a little bit, of just having a console. Like, all right, I guess I'll move this back to the desk and play for a day. Oh, you need the PlayStation, someone else? Okay, cool. Let me put it back on a TV.
Yeah.
Going back and forth. Not great.
Yeah. So I do think I need to buy a second Switch dock. So that second Switch dock that you have, I would love for you to send me a link to that.
Oh, yeah. That's what I use to connect to my computer as well.
Right, because now all of a sudden when I've been playing more games on the TV upstairs, Owen wants to play more stuff on the TV when he only used to want to play in handheld. So now I'm like, okay, I'll bring the dock downstairs. And he's like, Dad, why can't I play on the big TV? I'm like, dude, you haven't done that in weeks or months.
Yeah.
So, all right. So with all of that said, like I said, the links to check out and join the community and get in the conversation with us are in the show notes. So please check this out. And we're going to jump over to some news.
All right. Yeah, we got a fair amount of stories this week, but a lot of them are going to be kind of quick, except for maybe the last two. But it's just a bunch of just random announcements that have been kind of going on the last couple days. The first one is Fallout 4 is getting a free upgrade on PS5, Xbox Series X and S that will add a performance mode, higher frame rates, 4K resolution, and some, I believe, some bug fixes. Totally Bethesda thing to fix bugs 6 years after the release, to just being like, hey guys, we're going to fix it, but I'm sure they'll add new bugs because they're fixing other issues. But yeah, when Microsoft acquired Bethesda, there was an FPS boost that was unlocked for Fallout 4, and people kind of assumed that would be it, but Microsoft or Bethesda came out and said, hey, free PS5 upgrade and Xbox Series S and X upgrades are coming. Dave, I don't want to be a cynic. Do you think they timed this with the investigation into the Xbox Activision acquisition on purpose?
I don't think they timed it. I think this is something that's kind of been in the works, but I don't know. We talked about the impact of these acquisitions. I guess I'd spin it around. Do you think that this extra upgrade would have happened if Microsoft didn't acquire them?
I don't think it would be a free upgrade. I would see them just re-releasing the games. I'm sure they are going to re-release these games on the current platform, so you get a PS5 box that says Fallout 4. But I would imagine Bethesda would have just waited and been like, there's no free upgrade. Here's just, you can buy it on PS5.
Right. I think that I agree, because I think this is one of those things where they're probably seeing an increase in the player base of Fallout 4 from Game Pass. Whether you think Game Pass is substantial or not substantial, you're seeing an increase in player count strictly from Game Pass. That's been proven for multiple games. And with the PS4 and the Xbox Ones being similar architecture at the time, and the new consoles being even more similar architecture, I think it's one of those things where hey, if we're doing all of this work on the X and the S, it's easy just to copy and paste it and that's not the right term, but it's easy just to implement this on the PS5, so we might as well just do it.
Yeah, and it will get some goodwill at a good timing. The 25th anniversary of Fallout's happening right now. I wouldn't be surprised, because, the Xbox backwards compatibility team were doing the work where they're like, hey, we can unlock the frame rate, or not unlock it, but we can boost the frame rate on the Xbox, and that work was already done to where they just, because now they're in-house with Microsoft, maybe Bethesda was like, can we see what you did? And then they showed him to it, like, oh, we can do more with this, and then line it up with the investigation.
You went into that door. Oh, in that door is these doors. Oh, and now just to see a different route to go there. Like, oh, now I'll make it even higher.
Yeah, and then
because I made the engine.
And then they looked at the teams. Were like, how many people would this realistically take, and how long would this be? Like a cool thing we can just throw in the 25th anniversary. Which, to be fair, like the 25th anniversary for Fallout was kind of lackluster in terms of like announcements and stuff. It was like, hey, here's some Fallout 76 like news, and then here's Fallout 4 FPS boost or whatever. So they needed something to announce for that, and this is pretty good. Fallout 4 is a game that I remember reviewing really high because I did like it when I was playing it, but of the Fallout games, when I look back like 6 years later, I do not remember a damn thing about this game, but I remember at the time I enjoyed it. I believe so. I believe this was like God, now I'm gonna have to look it up. I want to say it was like 2015.
I'm sure it's possible.
Yeah, so
wow, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. We've been doing this too long.
Too long. But yeah, I remember enjoying Fallout 4 a lot. I think I ended up giving it like a 9 out of 10. But like I don't remember anything about it.
I think I recall you were having it like really, really early too.
Yeah, I did, and that was one of those games.
Like 6 weeks or something like that, and
it was one of those. And it was not buggy for me, and I remember when the leaks were happening and people were saying it's super buggy, and I think I forgot who I messaged. I messaged someone that we both know, and I was like, "You're reviewing Fallout 4. Was your experience buggy?"
Honestly, it might have been like Chandler at the time.
I think it was. I was like, "Hey, was your experience buggy?" Because mine wasn't, and that person was just like, "It's a little buggy," and I'm like, "Fuck! How come I didn't get bugs?" Because like that just happens sometimes with video games. Of just like, hey, you might have an experience that's perfect. Like
somehow you got a cleaner download than your counterpart.
Yeah, or I didn't dick around enough, or I stayed too much on the main quest and didn't have any issues.
Well, I remember that. Like I remember like previous like hearing about Skyrim like on the PS3 of like after you got to like a certain save percentage, it chugged because it was starting to take up the. I could be wrong when I say this, but it was starting to take up the available like RAM space of the PS3.
It was like the save files were getting too big, and then it was doing something with the RAM where it was locking up the PS3.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this is great. Again, this is one of those things where, especially with like going back like games like this, where I don't think like crossplay was a thing, to where now somebody might be more willing to like. I don't even think. Can you play Fallout with somebody?
No, only Fallout 76.
Oh, okay, never mind. But like if somebody got introduced to the 76 world, or wanted to go back and play Fallout, just having something like this running on a better system, like to even to go buy this on the PS5 store and just to know it's going to run better is always a good thing.
Yeah, and I'm curious what fixes, like, because I don't remember anything about Fallout 4, I'm almost curious to go back to it once this upgrade happens, just to see where it lines up for my memory in comparison to all the other Fallout games. But we'll see if I actually get around to it. All right. How did I organize this? Okay. Witcher 1 is being remade in Unreal Engine 5. So CD Projekt Red, Dave, was that like a month ago? They put their roadmap of like, hey, we're working on like 5 or 6 things. One of those projects was a secret Witcher project, and it turns out that is a remaster or remake of the first game in Unreal Engine 5. So not a lot to that story, but at least now we know the secret project that they were working on.
I think that, anybody that's like, I feel like from what I've heard, a lot of people picked up the Witcher franchise with Witcher 3, maybe 2. Yeah. But I would say more with 3. So I think that because Witcher 1, I probably am wrong because I don't know a ton about this franchise as much as you do. It wasn't on consoles, right?
So it was PC exclusive, but I think Witcher 1 eventually did come to consoles, but it was significantly later than when it first launched.
Yeah. So now if you're a fan of the Witcher stuff and you never went back to play this or didn't know it existed at the time, here's going to be your creme de la creme top of the food chain version that you would want to play.
Yeah.
In Unreal 5. So.
Yeah, and because CD Projekt Red is moving to Unreal Engine 5 for all of their future games, it kind of makes sense that they would start with, like, let's remaster the first game, like it is with a partner studio, but, like, it's at least an experience that they know from beginning to end what it's supposed to look like, what the missions are supposed to look like, to where now it's just like, let's just experiment with this just so we can learn Unreal Engine from a technical level to then apply to
before let's see if we can make our other game like actually work on this before we start trying to like do brick by brick of a new game.
Yeah, to where it's like, hey, we already have like the story down, we could probably get away with using the same voice acting and dialogue options, and let's just go from there. So this is probably a very smart move in terms of like, hey, this is one of the few times you can make profit off your R&D. Like, your research and development is going to be the thing that you can profit off of, as opposed to it being something just it's in the background that you'll make profit off eventually when you have something. So do you have any reason, do you have any idea like why they wouldn't just announce this when they did their roadmap? Because it just seems kind of weird to just tweet this out like, hey, the Secret Games Witcher 1, do you think they knew leaks were coming or something?
Did they give a time frame on the game?
No. So it's just basically just revealed that, hey, that project name that we were mentioned a month ago, it's Witcher 1.
I would have to look a little farther into it, into their earnings reports to see like when quarters end and quarters start. But I would assume that the roadmap was near a quarter end and now it's over, and they got the goal that they wanted to out of their investors to where they can start showing some stuff. They can start being more specific. If I had to really, really guess.
Yeah, that would make sense. Because I immediately...
If they're even a publicly traded company, which I'm not sure if they... Well, no.
CD Projekt Red,
are a publicly traded
At least in
because
like Poland, they are.
Right, because that was the pressure around getting Cyberpunk out by a certain time.
Yeah. So yeah, it must have been like financial report related, or they were just like, all right, it looks good. We can continue with it, because we don't know if it was just in like early stages and they're happy with what they saw and were ready to fully announce it. But all they released was an image. So this is definitely kind of a lackluster announcement, but still good to hear nonetheless. All right, Dave. Oh wait, no, I was going to say there's a story you're really excited about, or not excited about, but you have opinions on, but it's not this one. BioWare gave an update on Dragon Age Dread. So, as everyone knows, I'm a Dragon Age fan, and that fan base has been dying for any bit of news. Like, EA Plays have come and gone, E3, Game Awards, all this stuff has come and gone the last couple years, and there hasn't been much on Dragon Age Dread. But BioWare revealed that the game just finished its alpha stage, and it is now fully playable from beginning to end. What this means now is they're going to focus on like narrative cohesion, character relationships, and the game's pacing. But structurally, the game is playable from the first mission to the last mission, and now it's just a matter of them tidying up the pacing and making sure character relationships make sense, and then of course bug fixes as they implement more and more stuff on top of it. And then in unrelated news, but still related to BioWare, they did say the next Mass Effect game is already in development, as opposed to it just being one of those announcements that they give too early. But how do you feel about BioWare just kind of giving this sort of updates?
Is it bad that I didn't know it was called Dread Wolf?
Yeah, I mean...
Or that I've forgotten that it was called Dread Wolf? Because this is supposed to be 4, right? Technically?
Yes.
Okay. Again, I'm not a Dragon Age fan. I've never played a second of any of the games, but I am the story of BioWare is fascinating to me. Of this is the next thing that's going to come out since Anthem, and that's a very long time.
Yeah, because you don't want to count the Legendary Edition for Mass Effect, because that was just a remaster.
That was them, but like a third party too, right? Like somebody was helping them.
I think it's blurred. I think they ended up taking credit for it, but like original games, this is the first since Anthem.
Yeah.
Because did Andromeda come before or after Anthem?
think it came before.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% for sure. Or very close to each other, which people were saying it was affecting both.
Yeah, it might have been the same year, or maybe.
Yeah, maybe Anthem was like February and Andromeda was holiday.
Potentially, or reversed,
Yeah. And then, like, again, the company's just trying to save face. Like, yeah, we're still doing Dragon Age and Mass Effect. We're doing them both. And I'm like, okay, if I'm a BioWare fan, I'm like, just focus on one, please.
Yeah, it's definitely like worrisome.
I mean, for your standpoint, you're like, just get Dragon Age right.
Just get Dragon Age right. I'm happy they're at this phase though, because you usually hear about developers around the holidays. They like to have the game like fully playable, so then the developers can take it home on holiday break and then just play the game. Yeah, and so it's good that they at least hit that like.
Yeah,
deadline.
I mean, there are some things that are concerning to me in these bullet points that you point, like the developers focusing on narrative cohesion. Character relationships, Dragon Age game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a BioWare game, like those are important. And pacing, like I would hope that there is strong foundations in place for these things already, and these just need to be tweaked.
I would hope like what they mean by pacing is like, hey, here are all the missions we thought of, and now here's where we cut them or rearrange them.
Not play them again to make sure they feel cohesive.
Yeah, and this is where stuff will start to get cut because it just didn't fit the story. So the fact that they mentioned like character relationships, that would probably be the one concerning, because like that is like very fundamental. So I wish they would have explored or like detailed more of what that meant, because it's very intertwined in the story. The main campaign is like all those relationships that you're balancing. So I would love to just know what they do once the game's, fully playable from beginning to end, like how those tweaks and those processes go. They did mention that, they'll reach out to the community to get feedback. So I'm assuming that means like they're playtesters or probably people in the community, in the fandom, and then they're going to work with them just to see.
Yeah. You didn't put this as a news story, and I don't have it in front of me to reference it, but when you said it, it reminded me, like, did I see some headlines this week that said like a Star Wars game released its story to get feedback to decide if it's worth doing?
Was it the Quantic Dream story? Because Quantic Dream revealed that like, hey, we're gonna have a new race and we're gonna do a political story, and it was this whole thing.
The rumors are somebody released like intentionally leaked like the foundation of a game to mainly to solicit community feedback.
That might be related to the Quantic Dream thing, because I think it was Sacred Symbols podcast that had like a bunch of info on a Quantic Dream game. So it might have been that game.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just thought I remember reading some headlines and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So, versus the concern would be like if Dragon Age releases some kind of trailer, like, oh, we're hoping to hear what you think, and it's like, wait a minute, like you should be way farther along than thinking about what we're thinking right now.
Not if it's a Quantic Dream game, because that's not till 2027.
Not Quantic Dream, but in reference to Dragon
Age. Oh
yeah,
for Dragon Age, you would hope they're further along, and they say, though now I feel like we are within a year of this game releasing, if it's fully playable from beginning to end now.
So do you think that we get a trailer at EA Play E3 style thing, and then the game comes out in November?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. I think this announcement kind of writes it off for the Game Awards, because a lot of people were assuming we'd get a trailer at the Game Awards this year. But I feel like them just getting to this point now probably means they won't have a trailer ready for December. So we'll probably end up having to wait till the summer to get like a big Dragon Age blowout and to build up the hype. And now EA makes their announcements that their game's coming out like 30 days before they release. So they can take their time on announcing the release date for this one. Because they'll just surprise us. All right. Next story. Rocksteady co-founders have left the company. So Rocksteady and the co-founders, Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker, announced that they are leaving the studio. Both the studio put out a statement and the co-founders basically saying, hey, Suicide Squad is nearly finished, and it's in good hands. So we are leaving to pursue our own thing. And the timing seems not great, even if they say it's nearly finished, when is Suicide Squad coming out, Dave? Is it next year? Is it 2024?
I don't know if they've even dated it or windowed it or anything.
Yeah, like I'm not too sure, but yeah, the co-founders are leaving. They founded the studio in 2004, and for the last
2023.
Okay.
Spring 2023.
Okay, so
yeah, it is. It allegedly, if it's in that window of what April to July,
mm-hmm.
that would make sense if it's far along enough that they would. I think it's kind of weird that they're leaving.
Right, like this close to the finish line.
It tells me something else, that Rocksteady had some. This is pure speculation on my part. Rocksteady had some contract with DC for X amount of games. Let's call it 5 at this point. 4. Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Knight. That would be the Rocksteady DC games, correct?
Arkham Asylum trilogy.
Asylum, City, Knight.
Yeah.
Suicide Squad, and then they did the VR game, so it would be. Yeah. Okay, so maybe they had a 5-game contract with DC, and again, pure speculation on my part, but I don't think these two wanted to make a Suicide Squad game.
Probably not, or at least.
Or they didn't want to make a games as a service.
Yeah, and Warner Brother does own Rocksteady, so it was one of those things where you can only do so much, and maybe they were told hey. Gotham Knights didn't turn out as well as we thought. You guys are going back to Arkham. And they're just like, I don't want to. That could be a possibility. Basically. So the studio was founded in 2004, 2005. And for almost 10 plus years, they've only been making DC Batman universe games. So you could almost imagine that if you're the co-founders, this might not be what you wanted for your studio to be to
be the Batman studio.
Yeah. I mean, it's brought money and it's brought steady income, and Warner Brothers has been very patient with Rocksteady on video game releases. But maybe they just wanted to bail out. I will say, I have to bring it up, in 2020 there was a lot of news reports coming out of Rocksteady about harassment and uncomfortable work environments. But that stuff kind of quieted down after I think Rocksteady, I don't know how they addressed it, but they did address it. So, stuff kind of quieted down after all those reports came out.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I guess it's possible that this was an involuntary departure as well, of finish your shit and go.
It could be they hit a certain milestone and they could leave, or they were just tired of this, of just, again, being at the studio for almost 20 years, making Batman games for 10 to 15 years. And then Suicide Squad, we don't know the condition. We don't know the state of Suicide Squad, and it's been so long that maybe they just didn't want to be there for launch as well, to see how that goes down, especially after we'll talk about Gotham Knights a little later, but Gotham Knights, didn't really set the world on fire, so maybe they were just trying to avoid that as well. How long do you think before they announce their new studio, though?
I think it'll probably be pretty soon. I would assume in the next 6 months. I quote tweeted an IGN article tonight about this, and I said, please, I've already said in the last couple of months of the podcast, take your knowledge and go make a 4-player Ninja Turtle game with the Arkham system. That would be the dream.
Yeah. That would be fantastic. And the thing we need to bring up, though, too, is why they would want to leave. Warner Brothers is a mess right now. In terms of the film side, the leadership side, in terms of the Warner Brother Discovery leadership, the idea that all the Warner Brothers studios have been on the market and off the market, on and off for about 2 years now, probably isn't the best situation to develop games when you don't know who's going to own you, or if someone buys you and they even have access to the properties that you've grown attached to.
Yeah, and I know that we've talked about this before, and how much do we really want to see? But if they start their own studio and what Disney's doing with the Marvel licenses, and they can go, hey, these are the two guys that did this for Batman. Like, let's talk about a character that you're getting ready to introduce to the MCU, or a character that's not getting enough publicity. Like, and I can't, like a proper Thor game.
No, like it would be hilarious.
Like a
Moon
Thor
Knight.
as Rocky.
Like,
But I'm just saying, like, how cool would it be to play like a third-person Thor game of like, when he was like 18 to 23 or something. I don't even know how, or like on Asgard.
Yeah, or if they want to go dark and gritty, like, or like even if they don't want to go dark and gritty, like if you tell me like the people behind Arkham are making a Luke Cage game, or like a Daredevil,
or even like a Winter Soldier game, like when he was like
in World War II when he was an assassin,
right? Yeah, like that stuff sounds fascinating. Like immediately I thought, there was always the speculation about Rocksteady was doing like Superman, and we find out it's Suicide Squad obviously, but there was all these links of like what they were working on to the DC universe. But like those two have got some serious pedigree about what they did for not only the Batman market but the licensed game market.
The superhero market. Especially, it could be like a Game of Thrones style, where like the creators of the TV show Game of Thrones, up until the last 2 seasons, every studio wanted them. Like every movie studio wanted to work with them, and they bailed on Game of Thrones because Disney was throwing Star Wars contracts at everybody at the time. Right. So then they're like, you know what? Cancel Game of Thrones. We're gonna go get that Star Wars money. That backfired them in a long run, but as you said, Marvel's kind of throwing out like Marvel licenses and money. So if you're at another studio,
it sounds crazy. And like Rick Warden, the Percy Jackson author, who my son is a huge fan of, he's in the news recently because now he's doing like another book in the Percy Jackson series. But like, I don't know if you were ever a fan of this, and I only became a fan because my son read the books and wanted me to watch the movies of like the Lightning Thief and all that stuff. But like, I think a game in that world would be really cool.
Oh yeah, there's totally like a bunch of licenses that, if you're interested in making that license a game, as long as these two co-founders are not problematic, you would probably have a meeting with them. Like
DC, they had enough confidence. That DC had enough confidence in them. Not even necessarily Warner Brothers or Rocksteady Studios, but DC had enough confidence for them to make their own villain.
Yeah, their own villain. There are multiple.
It's in the comic world now.
Yeah, because it's funny.
The Arkham Knight is in the comic world.
Yeah, it's funny though because like DC was like, you know what, you can have your own Arkham Asylum comic series, and then eventually they got to the point where they're like, oh, that's just canon now. Like your creation won't live in its own comic bubble; it's going to be canonical. The
foundations that this company and these founders like put into like Arkham Asylum at the time started to make the definition of, I guess, a linear open world.
And before anyone says anything, we do know it's a whole development team that put effort into this game. But when it comes to companies throwing money around, they usually only throw that money around on the top levels of the teams.
Sony Santa Monica couldn't release a God of War or couldn't release a game without Cory Barlog.
Yeah, they went a couple years where it was just like, what are we gonna do?
They had 1 or 2 things completely canceled, and then then Sony finally got irritated and went back to Cory and said, "All right, what's it gonna take?" And it took him to get what he probably had his list of demands, and we got God of War 2018 from that. So,
and then he was successful enough that he's like, all right, peace out, give God of War to someone else, and now give me like my own project. Right. And we'll see.
But like, what would a Naughty Dog game look like with Druckmann not touching it at all? Probably not as good.
Yeah. Regardless of like what you think of Druckmann, because we know a lot of people get sensitive about him. But like, what would a Naughty Dog game look like without his fingerprints on that? I mean, it was a fear we had when Amy Hennig left, of like, wait, if Amy Hennig's not working on a Naughty Dog game, is it going to be good? And then it's like, no, we got Druckmann. It's like, oh, okay. So I would imagine these two, again, if there's no issues with them, will probably find themselves working on a big licensed game if they want to. But they also could probably flex off into other industries if they wanted to and do stuff. But now that you put it out there, I wouldn't be surprised if they announce a studio and say like, we're making a Marvel game, because again, Disney is throwing the money out right now.
My dream would be something in the Ninja Turtles format, just because of the delicate balance in the Arkham series that they walked with the dark sides of the Batman universe and still being appealing enough to people that it wasn't like psychologically messing with anybody.
Okay, So I got to ask you, if you were going to get a Ninja Turtles game, which Ninja Turtles would you want in terms of like, I don't know if you read the comics when you were a kid, but those are like black and white and gritty. You have the cartoon, you have the movies, and then you have, a whole bunch of other variants after that.
To be honest with you, I think that in terms of like the aesthetic of the visuals that I would want is I would want it to look like the first live action movie. Like that's what I would want them to look like.
I kind of would be interested in that, but I would almost want them to literally look like the movie, where it's like those type of suits.
Yeah, that look, like, so that 90s cartoon look for them, but I would like them to understand that the player base that's playing this is 35 to 50 years old.
That's why I think you can almost get away with the gritty black and white origin of them, but that might be too far. I don't know if Nickelodeon would want
that they could. Right, I think they could find a solid balance though of a fun combo-driven mostly nighttime shadow based game that tells pretty deep story of each of them.
I was gonna say, are all the Ninja Turtles still alive from the movie? I think they are, though I think Corey Feldman's problematic. But like, if you could give me the voice actors from the movie to come back and do the show, or to do the video game, that would probably be like the dream project. It's either that or I'd want the gritty original Ninja Turtles.
Like a side quest where Raphael has a temper tantrum and runs off, and you do a bunch of stuff on your own for a little bit, and like other quests for like trying to find like the balance, like the darkness of Leonardo and Raphael, and like the intelligence of Donatello and the craziness of Michelangelo, of where there's a side quest in the game of like trying to find the best pizza.
Yeah, you could do weird
but at the
stuff.
same time, like you're trying to help Ralph's mental health while Leonardo's battling with being the leader, and Donatello's like relied on to like to make it all function, like everything function correctly.
Was it the second one that Leo basically went to like a cabin to like refocus?
Yeah, it was the first one, I think.
Okay, yeah,
maybe the second one. I don't know. They're kind of
there's a bunch of cool stuff that they could do. Especially, I don't know what Nickelodeon would want to do exactly in terms of like it's got to look like the current cartoon or something. But I kind of like the idea of like, let's just make it a sequel to the movies and just use those designs, because that would probably be pretty awesome. And then you can get like, I don't know, 90s nostalgia in there. Like, set it in the 90s. Don't bring it to current days. I don't want them on cell phones and shit. Just like make it like Ninja Turtles in 1995, or like whatever.
He just wants to see April O'Neil in a yellow jumpsuit.
I mean, didn't they do that in the Michael Bay ones? So just don't make it Megan Fox, and you're all good. No, but I think it would be cool just to put them in the 90s and just have it go from there. Because we're done with 80s nostalgia, right? Like, that's got to end soon, eventually, right? Stranger Things has one more season. Like, we can be done with the 80s. They're fucking overrated. I hate the 80s. All right, next story. Well, speaking of Rocksteady and DC, so Gotham Knight came out, as we talked about last week, on console. It's 30 frames per second. This led to a bunch of developers and studios basically saying like, this is the Xbox Series S's fault. So we had Bossa Studios developer claim like, the developers have been petitioning to get the Series S dropped as a requirement from Xbox, because currently if you release on Series X, you need to have a Series S version of your game. So Bossa Studios is saying like, we've been trying to get that requirement dropped. Another developer came out and said that the Series S is an albatross on the next gen's neck, or on Xbox's neck. And then a Rocksteady developer said like, hey, don't blame the developers for Gotham Knight, blame the Series S. Like, it's bottlenecking the ability for games to get bigger or handle performance. Jeff Gerstmann, formerly of Giant Bomb, was like the only one that I think Dave is going to side with, and was basically like, hey guys, that's bullshit, because on PC, developers have to go for even lower common denominator than the Series S, and they're able to do it. So, like, you can't really say...
So my biggest problem with this at the core is it runs higher than 30 frames on PC, like you already mentioned. So, and we've lived in a world where games ran better on the 360 than on the PS3, and that games have ran better on the PS4 than the Xbox One, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so why didn't they just take the PC version and port it to PS5 and literally point the finger at Xbox and say we can't do it because you won't let us? So if I don't understand why you would use the same code for, or the same development cycle for PS5 as you would for Xbox if the Xbox is holding you back. It would be more of a reason for people to buy your game on PS5 than Xbox. You're a third-party developer, so you want it to run the best possible. But yes, to your point, they have to think about somebody with a 980 Ti graphics card and a 490.
Yeah. You know, like, what are we up to? Like 3090 right now? Like, they have to make sure.
I think 4090 is the size of the PS5.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much. So they have to account for a super wide range on.
They have to account
PC.
for if you have an SSD, if you don't have an SSD, if you have X amount of RAM or you don't have X amount of RAM. Yeah, there's minimum recommendations, but there's also multiple different settings in there to where, like, why isn't this game running better on PS5 if the Series S is holding it back and Microsoft saying, no, you have to make a game that runs on the S and the X? They could be like, okay, and then you just take the PC port and put it on the PC and the PS5. Like, why isn't that happening?
Especially, like, the console version doesn't even consistently hit 30 frames, you know? So it's not like the PS5 and the Xbox Series X are like, yeah, we're hitting 30 the entire game. There's no chugging issues. We could have hit 60, but the Series S is a problem. It seems like kind of a cop-out by various developers because, yes, the Series S is holding the console next-gen back potentially, but I don't think it's as drastic as, like, we can't even hit 30 frames on the big boy consoles.
If Flight Simulator can run on the S, Gotham Knights the S shouldn't be holding Gotham Knights.
No, and that's my problem is, like, I don't think it should be. They can't say it's holding it back if it can't even hit the basics on the more powerful consoles. You know, like,
because we saw this with the PS4 and the PS4 Pro, where people just put a game in the PS4 Pro and it just ran better by itself.
Yes, so in theory, the Series X and the PS5 should be able to hit 30 frames no problem.
Right.
But instead, they're getting like 20 to 25 frames in some instances, and it's just like, that doesn't make sense. Like, even if the Series S is holding you back, it should at least mean you have steady frame rates.
So the Series S should be 24 to 30, and the X should just be
30. Exactly. Exactly 30. But it's not. So it's definitely, like, I think we will be having this discussion in a couple years where people are like, okay, look, we can only do so much, and, like, I
think that in a couple years we're going to get the better on X sticker.
Yeah, or they just discontinued the S and are like, stream. Like, you can play on a cloud, which is probably what they want in a couple years anyways. But it definitely seems odd to blame the S for the shortcomings of the X and the PS5, because it doesn't make sense. It should just run like shit on the S. Like, we shouldn't even be talking about the X and the 5.
Right. And then circling back to, like, Gotham Knights being their own worst enemy, if the S is really causing you these problems, why isn't it on the PS4 and why isn't it on the Xbox One then?
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah, I think what this comes down to, and because I think this comes down to Warner Brothers just being kind of a mess in terms of, like, they probably did...
Get it out. Get it out.
You have people that ran a Discovery Channel now in charge of everything, and they're just like, just release it. And then the possibility that they just didn't give the studio enough resources to where that's why they had a drop last gen, because they just didn't give them enough resources, and also were pushing the deadline of you got to get this game out. So it just led to them just, you know, giving a game that hopefully they have resources enough to patch it on console. We'll talk about it on PC, but it sounds like it's going pretty well on PC. Friends that I know that are playing it on PC as well are like, this game's pretty damn awesome. And I think that's something that you notice in reviews for the game. Some people are like, hey, it's pretty good. Those people tend to have reviewed it on PC. And then the ones that are like, this game's not doing well are the ones that are on console because limited experiences. But yeah, we'll probably hear more about the Series S holding stuff back maybe in like 2-3 years.
I think you might actually start hearing a little bit about this like when Starfield comes out and Digital Foundry puts this game through the ringer, like literally through the ringer, or when Redfall comes out, like when games are coming out when Microsoft releases quality
that's a big
AAA content. I know, but like on the horizon is Starfield and Redfall and Hellblade 2 in that order, I believe. And I think that it'll be very telling of how Starfield runs, because this is one of the and I think it'll be even more telling when we get an Obsidian game out that's start to finish development underneath the Microsoft umbrella, or we get something out from a newer studio, a non-core Microsoft studio, like an acquired Microsoft studio that had the ability to start and finish an IP under the entire Microsoft acquisition. I think that's when you'll start seeing stuff, because I really think if S was holding it back, I think somebody like Phil Hines would say something publicly.
Potentially.
Pete Hines.
Sorry. Pete Hines. Potentially, yeah. I mean, I feel like we're going to be having this discussion on the PlayStation side when God of War comes out, in terms of like they need to stop the PS4. Because God of War is coming out.
Because it started the bubble with the Horizon conversation.
Yeah,
it started.
Yeah,
it didn't last, but it started.
Yeah. And God of War is gonna review fantastic. Like those previews went out last week. Sounds like it's gonna be awesome. But we will have the discussion of like,
not even the discussion, but the question mark of,
does this need to be on this?
No, the reverse right now. What were they not able to do because they had to put it on PS4?
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to definitely come up of just like, could they have done a little bit more? And the answer is going to be yes.
It's going to sell like amazing. It's going to be a top 2 game of the year contender, if not game of the year. Like it's going to be great. Like it's going to do all those great things. But people are going to be left to wonder, like, and whatever I was.
It's
hearing,
like when the athlete comes back,
the area you have to shimmy a little bit through. Like, did that only happen because it had to be put on the PS4?
It's gonna be like like if Ken Griffey didn't get injured those couple times, like where would he have been? And that's what the PS4 is gonna start feeling like. And I think we will hit that point with the Series S. I just don't think it's yet. Like right now, we're not hitting that point because there are like Forza runs fucking fantastic on the Series S.
Well, because there's truly nothing that you can point at right now. 2 years, almost 3 years from the is it? Are we coming up? Are we coming up on 3 years for PS5 and Xbox?
Yes,
One?
This will be the third year.
Like this November.
Yeah.
This will be the third year.
2019.
This is high quality next gen games. Like that hasn't happened yet.
No.
Ratchet and Clank was close. Returnal was lower than Ratchet and Clank in my opinion, and those are really the only 2 PS5 exclusives. PS5 only, that have really come out. Medium didn't do it, for Xbox Series, and PS5, which I don't think you can get Medium on PS4. Can you?
I don't think so, but I wouldn't be surprised if you could, because Medium turned out to be a very not big deal of a game, power wise.
But I'm just saying that we just don't have. Neither company has any flag to stake in the ground of like, here's our super cool consoles and here's our great game. Yeah, like everybody can point at Miles Morales and how cool and shiny and pretty it looks. I can go play it on PS4 if I want to. It's not as good, but I can do it.
Yeah.
So then it should be okay for the Series S to be that way. It's not as good, but I can do it. But the X version should run better, and that's not happening with Gotham Knights.
Yeah, and that's where this whole discussion kind of falls apart of like the Series S is holding it back, because it's just like, then it should be able to hit the barest of minimums on the more powerful console, because that's just how it should work. But that's not the case. But we will be hearing about this even more. We'll hear it on a PlayStation side, but I think this is the last year for the PS4 Really, I don't think they have anything announced big.
They don't really have much announced next year, anyways. That they said is PS5 only. Sony hasn't.
Yeah. So, but again, so it might be the last year of the PS4 because there's nothing else coming.
I have a feeling, like from Microsoft's standpoint, I don't know. Like, is Starfield coming to Xbox One?
Did Starfield? I'd have to look that up. I'm curious because I want to say no. I want to say that.
Or is Redfall coming to Xbox One?
No, I think Redfall was the first one. It's like, yeah, we're not coming out.
Okay, because I was gonna say, like, I would expect Hellblade not to come to Xbox One.
Yeah.
Hellblade 2.
Starfield's only on X and S.
Okay.
So we don't have to worry about them being held back by the Xbox One. But that's going to be the test of, like, hey, can this Bethesda game, which is already going to be buggy because it's Bethesda, how much did the Series S hold it back? That would probably be the first legitimate discussion of, is the Series S holding Xbox back? I don't think Gotham Knights is that discussion starter. But Starfield, Redfall could be those. Well, maybe not Redfall, because Redfall is going to be a co-op multiplayer game, but like Starfield for sure, Hellblade for sure, because Hellblade's going for like a high fidelity experience. Right. So those would probably be the two games that are going to be the breaking point for a lot of people. All right, Dave, we're almost done with this news run.
Nah, you could.
We have Silent Hill. We talked about it last week. They had a big stream the day after we recorded. Thanks, Konami. But they announced a shit ton of stuff. So you liked it when CD Projekt Red did this a month ago. So let's see if you like it when Konami does it. Konami announced Silent Hill 2 remake from Bloober Team. This is a timed PS5 console exclusive. So it's being made in partnership with PlayStation. Funny, it happened the day after PlayStation complained about Xbox potentially making exclusive content for Call of Duty, but here we are.
You said it this time.
Yeah. Just anytime they announce like exclusive stuff, especially, let's get into it. So
it sounds bad that Jim Ryan just went to Europe and complained essentially that Microsoft is buying exclusivity, and then he goes and buys an exclusivity.
And then I think they're also doing it
timed exclusivity.
I think they're also doing it with Resident Evil 4. And the Capcom had an announcement last week, which made me think that, like, was there supposed to be a state of play last week? Because we just had Konami make an announcement, and then Resident Evil being like, we have gameplay of Resident Evil 4. Seems kind of weird. Like, maybe they pushed, pushed the state of play because they were in the middle of doing something over in Europe. But the next game, Silent Hill F. This is a game set in the 1960s. With famed horror writer Ryukishi 7, and it's being made by Neobards, the developers of like Resident Evil Reverse, I believe it's called. But basically, it sounds like Silent Hill is turning into kind of like an anthology series, as opposed to just being like, hey, we're just going to continue the Silent Hill saga. It's like, no, we're going to jump out of the mainline Silent Hill and start creating new stories. So this one could be really interesting. The writer had a really big anime 10 plus years ago, When They Cry, which I'm currently watching right now, and it's actually really good. So I'm like very interested in checking this out because it's right around the same time I started watching the anime. They announced like, hey, that anime writer is now making a Silent Hill game. We have Silent Hill Ascension, which is a live interactive experience. There wasn't a lot of details on what that means. And then we get Silent Hill Townfall. This is from No Code Studios and Annapurna Games. And this is like a mystery game set in the Silent Hill universe. And then they announced Return to Silent Hill, a movie adaptation of Silent Hill 2. So Konami just came out and just announced every single Silent Hill project they possibly can. And it seems like they're taking it kind of serious based on like the partnerships they're making in terms of what they announced and the direction they seem to be going, or the many directions they seem to be going with the franchise. So, Dave, I know it's not your thing. You're not a Silent Hill fan. We talked about the Bloober Team thing. People weren't too happy with Bloober Team being the answer. or being a developer. But how do you feel about Konami?
What was the public perception of Blooper Team doing this? I didn't see.
People are not happy just because. So Layers of Fear got a lot of praise at the time, but Blooper Team started to kind of come across as like a one-trick pony, where all their games are just kind of showing mental health issues as like horror tropes, and people got kind of tired of that being repeated over and over again in their games, because it's just like, it's not scary, it's people dealing with mental health issues. So like people just felt like it was, I don't want to say lazy because that sounds too rude, but if you look online, people are not happy with how Bloober Team handles mental health illness and how they make it the main trope of their games. So the idea of giving them Silent Hill has a lot of people concerned. But they're remaking an established game, so I feel like they can't do too much in terms of changing it.
This might have been a little bit too much Silent Hill at once.
I'm kind of going with that. I think you could have got away with like 2 announcements.
I liked CD Projekt Red thing because they said, okay, we're doing Witcher, we're doing more Cyberpunk, and I think they even they said that we're doing something else new.
Yes.
That's not Witcher or Cyberpunk. So versus essentially 4 Silent Hill games announced and a Silent Hill movie.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit much. The thing that intrigues me a little bit here, and I think maybe you, I don't remember if you said this or not, but the Annapurna games being part of it is interesting. Yeah. I've heard really good things about Annapurna. And then the one that terrifies me is the live interactive experience. Now, is that like a games as a service live experience? Is that like a, like we don't know. But I think you're just literally trying to ride the Silent Hill thing like super, super hard when your community was like, the Silent Hill community was like, can we just see something new?
They were happy with just a remake of 2. Like, that's all they wanted.
Right. And then it's like, so it's like going to grandma's house for Thanksgiving and hoping that grandma makes, her pumpkin pie or her apple pie, and you get that one piece of it, and grandma's like, no, I made you 2 pies, you're taking these home. And you're like, I don't want all that.
Yeah.
Like, I just wanted one piece. Like, I just wanted my one time a year to have grandma's pie, and now you're telling me, like, I'm the only one that really likes grandma's pie that eats dinner at this house, and you're making me take all this home because the only way you know how to make it is in large quantity.
Yeah, it totally seems like they might have gone with too much stuff. I think people are really excited for Silent Hill F just because of the writer, Ryukishi 7 being a part of it, because it's like something different potentially coming from the franchise. Silent Hill 2 remake everyone was happy about, but the Bloober Team thing is like, it feels like Konami is just a little too late. If they would have announced the Bloober Team is remaking Silent Hill 2 4 years ago, I think the community would have been like, holy shit, you guys are this is amazing. Well, but the medium didn't do anything for people.
Yeah. And I think the scary part about this is, too, like, this might be Blooper Team trying to prove to Konami that they can do stuff with Silent Hill so that they can do their own thing, which doesn't sound like people really want, because their own thing has been the Medium and Blair Witch Project.
And then Konami, at the same time, are planting the seeds of, like, hey, one of these are bound to hit. Like, one of these 4 or 5 things are bound to hit, and then whichever one hits will probably be the direction the franchise goes in the future. But I, if anything, Konami just probably saw, like, okay, Silent Hill is popular. The horror game, mystery game genre is no longer a niche genre. Like, because those 2 genres had a run during PS2. That run died during the PS3 and early PS4 days, but it's kind of back because of Twitch streaming and people just wanting to watch people play scary things. So Konami is just like, okay, if we're going to do this, we're just going to throw everything at the wall and hope something sticks off the Silent Hill name. And hopefully one of these will become a hit, because Konami went from, like, we're not making any video games to, like, hey, we're making 5 or 6, but they at least partnered with people to try and accomplish that. And who knows, they probably saw that, like, if you wanted to buy a used copy of Silent Hill 2 on the PS2, how much do you think that would cost you?
Based on what you've been telling me as you've been going to some of these things, probably $100, $150.
Yeah, like $150.
Yeah.
So Konami must see that, and they're just like, well, shit. Let's release a Silent Hill game to see if we can capitalize on some of this like market craziness in terms of like not everyone can buy the $150 PS2 Silent Hill game, and no one wants to buy the Silent Hill remake that they did on PS3 because it's trash. Maybe they'll buy a new Silent Hill game so they don't feel left out. So Konami just kind of trying a little bit of everything to see if it works. So I'm happy with some of these announcements. I do agree with you. I think they did probably 1 or 3 too many announcements for Silent Hill. But we'll be playing Silent Hill. I think the Silent Hill remake is coming out in like sometime next year because Bloober Team's apparently been working on it for 2 to 3 years. So it'll be pretty soon.
It was just so funny to see social media people like praising PlayStation for like, oh, like this wouldn't happen if PlayStation didn't pay for it, blah 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 blah, and then it's like, you can't have my Call of Duty. I'm like, what?
The funny thing is, the people that are complaining don't even play Call of Duty, which is the best part.
It's just like, or making fun of people for writing letters to CMA, which is weird as it is anyways. But don't make fun of people. Like there's a Reddit post or Twitter thread of somebody's letter to them. Like, just like, come on, like. If the tables were turned and Sony was buying Activision Blizzard and this was going on, people like the Sony fanboys would be screaming.
Oh, they would be celebrating. They'd be dancing in the streets.
Yeah, but they'd be screaming if Microsoft was trying to stop them.
Oh yeah, no.
Oh, this big megacorp, like, oh, blah blah blah. You can't release game. Why didn't you buy them? But then when the opposite, okay, never mind.
I know. It's going to be a long CMA arbitration process. Because I didn't even put that in the news. If the CMA is like, we want to hear from the people. And it's just like, don't do that. You don't know what you're doing. Ugh.
I think I started to tweet something about that, and I said, you know what? There's no really good way to do this, so let me just not do it.
It's not worth it.
I think that might have been like the one time that I like showed restraint, which I usually don't.
Yeah.
When it comes to that kind of stuff. Just like, all right. So as of now, as we're getting closer to either nothing being announced, therefore nothing can be delayed. Although I'm still holding out that Midnight Suns is going to get delayed again.
It's too late now. I don't think that's coming.
All right. So what we're planning on watching. I'll go first. Because I think we'll transition together. I think you may have played some of this. I'm not sure. So I finished Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Beat the boss. Very cool ending. Very well done. Overall, very good structural story. I really enjoyed it. It's up there in some of my most enjoyed games of 2022. Granted, that's probably going to change over the next 6 to 8 weeks because I'm tentatively trying to play like another 4 or 5 games. But in terms of the 5 or 6 games that I've played, completed, and beat, it's in my top 3 right now. So very, very good. Main reason I've been 100%ing a couple of things is because I could take the Switch with me, and we were in the ER with Owen for like 11 hours. He's fine, but ERs are a mess right now, so do everything you can not to go to an ER. It's my recommendation. And it has nothing to do with COVID. And then I bought Gotham Knights. So as almost everybody that's listening to this show knows, is that I have the patience of a 3-year-old child. Michael can attest to this on a personal level as well. There were chances or opportunities that we were going to get Gotham Knights for review. But being a smaller entity that we are, sometimes we have to wait, which is fine and appreciative and totally understandable. But I got a new $1,500 toy. So, and I have a couple friends that are pretty avid on PC, and Michael's knowledgeable as well. So I started kind of just like the reviews of Gotham Knights were a little concerning to me, but I enjoy the comic book superhero stuff like we talked about, and I kind of felt like no matter what, this was something cool that I wanted to see in the Batman universe evolve. I didn't really care what the reviews were going to say. I was going to do it for myself. So then I started kind of looking around a little bit and hearing the 30 frames per second conversation. I'm like looking on how much it cost on PC, and again, I hadn't really delved into it. I've always heard of it, never really paid very close attention to it. So Green Men Gaming had this game, had Gotham Knights for $50. full disclosure, they accept PayPal Pay in 4 if that's a thing that you're worried about. So like in terms of like, hey, I don't have $50 or $70 to do this, you could do Pay in 4 if you wanted to. I think Pay in 4 is a really cool thing. Do I have $50 right now? Sure. Do I have $12.50 every 2 weeks and not to have to worry about taking $50 from me right now? Yeah. There's no interest, there's no penalty, so that exists. The definitive version of the game is $20 cheaper than the 30 frame per second version of the game.
Yes.
That's fascinating to me. The regular price of the game on PC is $10 cheaper than the $70 version of the PS5 and Xbox Series games. So I was like, all right, let's check it out. I wanted to, and it was very easy to buy it on Green Man. It linked automatically to my Steam account. I was able to do everything on my phone, like I've done before on Xbox and PlayStation. I didn't really mess with this. I know some of you are probably like laughing. Like, I don't delve into this PC world too much. I played games on my PC that were on Game Pass PC, and I played free to play games like Destiny on my PC as kind of just testing it and messing with it and doing that kind of stuff. Michael told me today that I can put an in-game frame counter on my game. I didn't know that was a thing, so I'll try to figure that out to see what frames Gotham Knights is working at or not. But I played like the first 2 hours and did a little bit of the open world, like nightly patrolling while you're collecting information. And I thought that the opening to this game was fantastic. Like, have you played this at all yet?
No, I haven't had a chance to. I have it downloaded, but I haven't been able to because another game I've been playing is taking up all my time.
Right. The first 30 minutes of this game are awesome. Like, most of you know the story, the basis of this, and if you don't, but like seeing how Batman dies is cool.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like the story and the narrative and the conversations between the characters, and kind of like this evolving this evolving narrative between the four characters, between Red Hood and Nightwing and Robin and Batgirl, along with other characters, is fascinating. I did not expect this to be like a looter style game, which is a little disappointing. And what I mean by a looter style game is you're opening up chests, you're hoping for gear in there. I haven't read or heard if there's like, oh, go do this specific mission and find this specific chest, you'll get this specific thing. I don't know if that's a thing or if every chest you open is a little bit of RNG dice rolls of things. I did not expect to be collecting materials for doing crime or for stopping crimes and then using those materials to be crafting different weapons. Like, that part kind of fractures the Batman thing to me versus like, again, when they did the Arkham thing where he would kind of discover more things as he progressed in the game, of finding pieces of his gear or finding things that could upgrade his current gear to make his battering ram be able to freeze things, because he just got done with the Mr. Freeze issue, like fighting through Mr. Freeze issues, and he had a freezable tank that could be added to his stuff. Like, the upgrades narratively fit the story versus this like, I found this really cool thing in a chest or I crafted this. Like, that part is a little cumbersome to me, a little bit not necessarily what I wanted. Driving the bat cycle feels a little floaty, but the combat is at the entry level is fun. The momentum system is interesting. Like, you build momentum by doing certain things, combat wise, and then you could execute a momentum move. And as you go through your skill tree, you can upgrade more momentum based attacks. As well as you have gear that generates momentum faster. So some of it's like, do you upgrade? Is this worth the upgrade? Do I wait a little longer? Is this affecting my gameplay? That's the kind of stuff that I wasn't expecting from it and necessarily didn't want to think about. It's one of the things that's, I can only sometimes balance so many games together at once, in terms of like, okay, is my loadout built correctly for me to go on this night patrol with Robin? Like, that's not necessarily a thought that I was hoping to have with this game versus, hey, you know what? I want to go do some cool like acrobatic stuff with Robin and beat the crap out of a bunch of stuff that he just does naturally. So that's a little disappointing and concerning to me, but it's still fun. Like, it's still a good, fun game. I'm only about 2 or 2.5 hours in. I've read that it's about an 11 to 13 hour experience. I don't know if that's an 11 to 13 hour experience per character, or is it going to be worth playing it on the other characters? Should I be switching characters? Like, that part's not really kind of given to you. So to level up 4 different character skill trees feels a little cumbersome. So I'll have to kind of see where we're at with that. But I'll put the frame counter on, and I'll play some more this week, and I'll stream some more, and we can have some fun as a community. It's like a couple of you guys were watching me play before. I don't hate it, but I don't love it yet. But I feel like I'm at early on. I'm agreeing with where this game lives in the review scale of around a 6 to a 7, and that's not a bad thing. Like, it's okay.
No, the scales go to 10, so right in the middle is okay to be.
Yeah. I did mess around a little bit with Destiny. I got Destiny up to like 150 plus frames on my computer, which I thought was pretty cool. Some of the detail stuff. I did see a difference. Am I going to be like switching to PC? Like, no. Not unless the rumors of Discord voice integration coming to PlayStation are true.
It's improved on Xbox.
It's closer than we think.
I don't know if you saw that. They improved it on Xbox, or it's in the process of being improved.
So if they can get the Discord integration working, like I could. It's part of the reason I haven't pre-ordered Lightfall that's coming in February, because I'm like, there's a part of me that would love to play this on my PC, but I'm only going to do that if I can still play with my PlayStation friends, and the best way to do that is through Discord. So Discord and PlayStation need to get their act together soon.
Please.
Please. Just get it together. You publicly announced your partnership and your stake in that company, and you let your competitor get their voice chat on their phone.
I'm just so glad, because I don't know if you saw the video where it's like, no, you get to see your Discord servers now without using your phone on Xbox, and it's just like, PlayStation, please do that day one. Like, it took Xbox a little time to get there, but please do that day one. I guess
the alternative is if Sony comes out and says, "Hey, Discord integration is coming January 1st, and you get the same Discord experience on your phone or your PC as you get on console." Like, if they can say that and deliver that,
yes,
then it's worth the wait versus the little beta drip feed we're getting on Xbox. However, at this current time, if you're playing a game on Xbox, you can talk to your buddy across the country that's playing on his PC through Discord.
Yeah.
In the Xbox. So, and also Xbox has the ability for you to, even if you're not playing a game on Xbox's system and you're playing a game on Steam, you can open up the Microsoft app and join a party with an Xbox account with anybody that's playing on console. So, especially with the games as a service, Sony's games as a service coming to PC soon, they need to make sure there's a way for PC and PS5 to talk to each other. Whether it's Discord or making an app on the PlayStation or on the PC that works with the PlayStation.
Yeah.
Like, and not be remote play.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so just a little bit of Gotham Knights, more Mario Rabbids, spending a significant amount of time setting this PC up, but again, being very careful, strategic, and taking my time and making sure that I didn't mess anything up. So,
and so far
that was my
so
week,
far so good. All right, for me, Overwatch 2 has still been going strong. Though looking at how they're handling microtransactions with the costumes and stuff, like, holy shit, do they want you to spend money? And if I wasn't someone who was able to transfer all of my costumes from the first game into the second game, I would probably be bummed out by like the grind that's implemented for like new players in Overwatch 2. But I'm only doing competitive. I have all the costumes I want from the first game, so I'm not really looking at the new costumes for my characters because I'm happy with where my characters are visually. But that's Overwatch 2. That's just been in the few times that I have not been playing A Plague Tale Requiem, which came out last week and has been just eating up all my time. I ended up downloading it off Game Pass because it was a day one Game Pass game, so it saved me $60, though I'm probably going to buy a physical copy from the Focus Home store just because they have special cover art from the publisher directly, so I'm probably going to still pick up a copy. But yeah, all of my concerns about the sequel, which I think I've mentioned on the show, I was worried that they were going to scale too much and go for a way bigger story and kind of drag the game out. I don't have those issues with this game after playing it. They found like a really good balance of scaling the story, giving you a bigger adventure, but not losing the core of what made the first game so like entertaining and fun and enjoyable for me. They found a way to, you know, focus on the characters and have you basically traversing, not like globetrotting, but you were in the first game, you're kind of just trying to leave the town you were in, and it was a really good 12-hour story that was focused and felt like it could have been a perfect one-off game, and then the studio could have moved on to something else. This one, you're traveling through multiple towns, you're going to some islands. It's not open world, it's still pretty linear, but it's pretty open in some areas. But I just don't want to spoil the story, so I'm trying to figure out best ways to talk about this. But we're still playing as Amicia.
The thing that creeped me out with some of the marketing I saw is they're like, oh, unlike the other version, we can only put like 250 to 400 rats on the screen, and now we can put like 5,000 on the screen. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh yeah, no. The rat tech has definitely improved, and the game has done a good job, at least in well, I'm already like done with it, but early going, you don't deal with any rats or anything for a good like probably 2 hours, which was like a nice, interesting way of starting it, because I thought they were just going to kind of try and hit the ground running and then have a reset. But instead you kind of you get like a more stealth-like experience the first several hours, and the stealth has been improved greatly. Hugo gets some new abilities once rats are reintroduced, which are very helpful for the stealth stuff. But this game just feels like almost like a perfect sequel in terms of like, hey, we know what we did right in the first game. Stealth was fun. The upgrade system and like some of the combat stuff is basic in terms of like upgradability, and that's okay. Like, they didn't overcomplicate that system. I love the way you upgrade now, to where you basically upgrade based on your play style. So you'll have like it's like opportunities you take. If you're doing more stealth or if you're doing more combat stuff, based on how you play, the game will just drop a skill point into one of those buckets based on how you played the level, to make that play style easier for you as you progress through the game, which is a nice touch to where you're not really thinking about it too much. You still are like crafting your gear and upgrading it that way, and you do have to like seek out items to do that, which I'll say those items feel kind of scarce because upgrading did take a really long time, but I never felt like weak or underpowered, especially because the game does rely on stealth. You know, the game doesn't really want you to get into too many combat scenarios, though you know when the game is pushing you in that direction, you can't really avoid it. But it does really want you to stealth your way through situations, because again, you're playing like, I think Amicia is 15 or 16 and Hugo's like 6. So they realistically don't expect these two to fight an army. So you are relying on stealth, and you can fight your way out of most scenarios, but you can get overwhelmed because again, it's a teenager and a child. So, you know, they don't expect you to just like fight your way through it. If anything, you can bum rush your way through stuff in terms of like, yo, I'm just going to run to the exit and get by, and that's more acceptable than like, oh, there's 30 people in this level? Cool, I'm going to kill each and every single one of them. The game's really not like expecting you to do that. But the story is still good because Amicia and Hugo are very endearing characters. We get some new characters that are introduced that are very likable, and I'm just happy that it doesn't feel like they drag things out too much. This is still like probably 12 to 15 hours. I'd have to look at like the play clock, but I did look at like how long to beat. It looks like most people were getting there in like 13 to 16 hours. So it's like the perfect like length for what you would want from the first game over into this game. I can't tell you how happy I am with this game, and it's definitely up there in like my game of the year like contenders list, which I'm still building. I still have my live ranking for game of the year that I keep running the entire year, but really excited for more people to play this. I do think you do need to play the first one to enjoy the second one, because it is a continuation of it. They do kind of an okay job to kind of like tell you like, hey, this is the story, but I don't know if they do a good enough job that you can just jump into the second one and be like, cool, I know what's going on based off like a couple second recap or the dialogue that come up in the first hour. So for like, in your case, Dave, you'd probably want to pick up the first one if you were going to jump into this.
Yeah, I mean, I have it on PS Plus, so I'm going to do it before.
Yeah.
It's on the list of the 12 that I want to beat this year. So.
And they're both like reasonable lengths. You know, it's like the first one 8 to 12 hours. This one 12 to 15. It's a gradual increase. To where now I went from the first one like they don't need a second game, to where now after the second one I'm like, this could be a franchise. Like I would be fine with it. It gives me like Assassin's Creed vibes in terms of gameplay. Like the entire time me and Sarah have been playing it, we're just like, this reminds me of Assassin's Creed 2. This reminds me of Brotherhood, and just building on.
Do the developers have Assassin's Creed roots?
No, they do not.
Okay.
But like the stealth, the time period, all feel like early
I was just more
Assassin's Creed
curious,
games, which is just. Though now it is a French studio, so I wouldn't be surprised if some Ubisoft people did make it into this studio. But yeah, no, this game made me so happy. Like we were playing it like, I think the first night we played it like 6 or 7 hours straight. Wow. And then every night since then it's been like 2-3 hour sessions until, you know, it was wrapped up. But yeah, if you have Game Pass, totally worth picking up. This is a funny thing. The game runs at 30 frames per second. Okay? But it's consistent at 30 frames per second. So there's a reason why people aren't talking about this the same way they're talking about Gotham Knights. And this also is on last gen as well. But it at least consistently hits 30 frames per second, and it's not heavy action to where there would be reasons for it to really dip.
Yeah, but I also think that, like, the little bit that I saw, like, you called it, like, the rat tech, like, I don't know if I want to see those things running at a higher frame rate.
Oh, no, they're definitely scary. And if you've...
I think if they tried to hit 60, they'd be criticized for, like, look at what this looks like. It just looks like waves. It looks like water.
Yeah, no, there's cool rat stuff that I can't spoil. But yeah, no, this game is one of those ones where it's a smaller studio, than like a big AAA studio. But they're able to work with what they have, if that makes sense, in terms of they know their limitations and scale.
They know their lane.
Yeah. And they're delivering like a really solid game that feels like a AAA experience, even though you can see from time to time where they had to like maybe cut a corner or two. But in terms of like how much they scaled from the first one, it's really enjoyable to see this turn into like a franchise. So highly recommend it. If you don't have Game Pass, I think it's still worth the $60 to pick it up. But if you do have Game Pass, you have like no excuse not to download this.
Awesome.
But that's it for me.
All right. So we're running a little long, longer than we like to. So questions and comments we're going to skip. We also didn't ask for any this week because my Discord decided not to notify me when anybody says anything to me this week. So and that's part of the reason. And Michael wanted to finish Plague Tale Requiem. That's part of the reason why we're recording on a Wednesday. So keep an eye on the streams. I'm going to try to stream a little bit more. If I'm playing Gotham Knights, especially since I bought it on PC, if I'm down here in the office playing Gotham Knights, there's probably not any reason for me not to stream it. So that's where we'll be at with that. We got God of War coming up. I want to play Plague Tale Innocence, and then I want to play Requiem. But I want to probably throw something in between there so I don't Plague Tale myself out.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get through
Elden Ring.
Get through Gotham Knights. I don't know. Like in a perfect world, I don't think this would happen. But get through Gotham Knights. Maybe get through the first Plague Tale before God of War. But that's close right now
2 weeks
with the time frame. Yeah, it's not impossible, but we'll see how that goes. But then, and then the other Plague Tale, and then wrap it up with some other, I think I still want to look at Death's Door, and before the end of the year. So, but with that, you can follow us on Twitter at Digital Days Pod. You can follow myself at Good Dave Hunt. You can follow Michael at The First MJC. He put up a really interesting layered picture of his cat, abusing him.
Dude, it was 11 o'clock. Cat's sleeping on a couch. I sit next to her, turn the TV on, start Overwatch. This cat wakes up, lifts her paw up to threaten me. I was just taking a picture because she was so cute, wrapped up sleeping. And then as I'm, taking the picture, she just rises up, picks up her paw, slaps the shit out of me. Because it was too late for me to play video games.
Those are the kind of things you can see if you follow at The First MJC.
Yes, being abused by a 20-year-old cat.
You can join our Facebook group. You can join our Discord server. Those links are in the show notes. Patreon is in there as well. That's the other thing I need to squeeze in before God of War is Dante's Inferno.
Yes.
That's only. I'm disappointed though. That's only on Game Pass console. So even if I wanted to stream it, I'd have to bring my Xbox down here.
Yeah.
So. But I think you would want me to stream it just to see my face.
At least for the first 4 hours. I want a timer in the corner of your stream of Dave is done. How long till Dave is finished.
Yeah. So you can check that stuff out eventually when I play that soon on Patreon. So patreon.com/digitaldaysgaming. And with that in mind, we will talk to you guys next week. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya.